to the Moonlight Real Estate Syndication Show. I am your host, Lindsay. Here at Moonlight, we choose to focus on achieving financial security through real estate. And today we are here with Bill Helm. Bill has over 19 years of experience in the real estate industry. He specializes in multifamily investing and creative financing. He is the author of 2 Amazon best-selling books, Real Estate Raw and Creative Cash, and the founder of Creative Cash Academy, where he mentors real estate investors to achieve financial freedom. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Bill.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Eric.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm looking forward to it. You specialize in underwriting, and this is definitely a time to be a skilled underwriter. There's so many different opportunities that's coming up or that's out there in the marketplace. And if you don't know how to view a deal or view a deal that's not legitimately a deal, you can find yourself in hot water. And so I'd be definitely interested in going a little bit deeper into that. And so with that being said, if you could just share a little bit more about yourself and also how you got started in real estate, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Multifamily owner operator in short. I've been in the business about 20 years now and since 2005. Started off with a duplex. That was my very first deal. I was a pilot by trade coming out of school, learned to fly airplanes. Started reading books, kind of got the bug about real estate. I saw friends of mine doing it, flipping houses. I thought, all right, if they can do it, I can do it. And so I went out and I closed, after some months of study, I closed my very first deal, that duplex. It cash flowed about $300 a month. I had saved up about 10 grand of life savings. And I quit the aviation job and went into real estate full time. So that's what I did. I went in a prayer in a duplex, and that's how I got started.
Yeah, so you quit your full-time job with a duplex. That's pretty unique. Sometimes you hear gurus saying, "Oh, you could quit your job with a fourplex or 6 single-family homes." And I'm sure that wasn't the case. So if you could just share a little bit of that backstory.
Yeah, you can quit with a fourplex. You just can't eat. You just don't eat food. I mean, so sure, you can quit with a fourplex. You can quit with a duplex, paying your rent, buying food and everything else. That's the catch, right? So be careful with that kind of advice. And that's one thing I always want to kind of bring up when I tell people, yeah, I quit my job with the duplex. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't listen to me and think, oh yeah, I'm going to go out there and do something crazy and quit my job. First off, I was 28 years old. So let's go there. I was young. I had no kids. I had no real debt. So I didn't have a whole lot of responsibility. It is absolutely not something I would tell a responsible individual to go out and do. Number two, it really probably wasn't the best strategic move for the real estate and for the business. And the reason was, I was living off of every penny that duplex was producing. Now I started flipping houses and things of that nature pretty quickly. But the problem was I had no extra money. And so when there were repairs and things that needed to be done on the duplex, it was very difficult for me because I was living on every penny produced by the duplex. So, that's not a great scenario to put yourself in. So yes, it's a catchy story, but it is just that. And please don't listen to gurus that tell you to run out there and quit your job and on a duplex and stuff like that. You'll starve to death. It's not good business advice.
So since that's not good business advice, what is a better strategy that a person could utilize, especially since you focus on multifamily, you've got a coaching program around that. What's some better advice and something that's a little bit more feasible for a person to somewhat have a roadway or a runway to be able to safely get things off the ground before they exit their W-2?
Yeah, the number one thing that you can do is to figure out what is the right size property for you. You don't want to go bigger than you can, but you want to go as big as you can, right? And a lot of these people say, oh, you need to go big or go home and this kind of stuff. And when they hear multifamily, they immediately start thinking, 50 units, 100 units, stuff like that. And you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to go out and close that kind of stuff. What you do need to do is to figure out what's the right size for you to get started with. What I teach my students is to answer that question from your borrowing capability, right? So how are we going to buy real estate? Well, if you have all cash, then that's an easy answer, and you're probably not listening to us right now, right? But if you're going to go out and actually get a bank loan, like 99% of us, right? Well, right there is where you get started. And you say, what can I personally qualify to borrow right now? And then let's take that amount of money and translate that into number of units in your market specifically, wherever you are. right? Because I'm in Florida, and that's different than, say, Atlanta or maybe LA or Miami or New York. All these different areas have very different values. And so if you say, I want to go buy 10 units, well, 10 units in El Paso, Texas, and 10 units in Miami or New York are very, very different 10 units with different cost basis and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I kind of tell people, don't start counting doors. Figure out how much money you can borrow, translate that into the market. That's where you get started. If you can't borrow any money, or you don't have any net worth or wherewithal, then there's where you want to get started, putting your team together to allow you to do some business.
That's excellent advice, to be able to find out exactly what you're capable of instead of going after the pie in the sky suggested going big or going home, going after properties that are well out of your reach. Go after with something that is really going to present you a better opportunity to have success with, and then start there and work your way up from there. So I think that's really good advice. If we could, let's bring things up as of today or to today. So what does it look like within your business? I know we were speaking a little bit offline, and you were saying that you were pausing things for a little bit, and you just wasn't really super bullish on the current environment. Share with us a little bit of the pessimism and exactly where you are within your business as of right now.
Absolutely. So I had built up a portfolio of about 1,000 units or so. I had sold all that off about 2 years ago, right before the rates started going up. So that was somewhat timing, somewhat just luck. Some people showed up, wanted to pay us a great profit, so we took the money, my partners and I. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. All the portfolio has been liquidated. I'm good. I've been waiting to find something that I like, right? And what we were talking about offline is it time to buy a good deal? Yes, it's always time to buy a good deal. But what is a good deal? That changes sometimes from market to market. The interest rates go up. That can adjust our underwriting, as we're talking about. So I'm looking for what I consider to be a good deal, and I am not finding a lot of those at the moment. Deal flow is limited and it is low, but I'm actually very bearish or bullish actually going forward into the market. I've actually been bearish in the last several years when everyone else has been saying the market's great. I think that what everyone perceived as the market being so good, and I'm really saying 2020 and on up till today, 2021 and on, people saying that that's such a great market, I think we're wrong. They were looking at a bubble. They were looking at valuations and prices that were not backed up by metrics, math, cash flow, proper rates of return, proper T12s and financials and underwriting, right? People were going around, and because it was so easy to raise money, they were just pointing at any kind of deal, kind of whipping up some numbers, and it really didn't matter because everybody was just wanting to invest in multifamily. And so there were so many of these kinds of deals done that now the loans have come due. Those properties are distressed. Those sellers are distressed. That's a great opportunity for me and for everyone to get back in and start buying. So if you're listening to this and you haven't bought yet, now is the time to really study. Do things just like you're doing now. Listen to things like this show and get your education together. Get ready. The deals are coming. If you're already an owner, you may be in a different situation. You either want to try and hold or get out of it if you can. I would recommend hold and sell at a future time. It's not a great time to sell real estate.
Yeah, I love that advice to just get prepared, especially for a person like me. I'm a newer investor, and so I've been in the syndication arena for somewhere close to about 2 years. And what I'm doing in the process right now is just really establishing a solid foundation, getting better and better at underwriting, and building my team. And, I haven't been able to find a whole lot of things that penciled out either here recently or within the last year or so. And I think that's a really good thing. And it's a part of being conservative instead of being super aggressive like a lot of individuals have been in the past. And some people are in the process of losing their shirts because of that. So you've got a couple of books out around underwriting. If we could discuss that briefly, what do you feel like is the most solid plan of attack when it comes to underwriting? I know you've got some creative financing ways. We could kind of chat about that after this, but just some basic underwriting tips for a person that's just getting started within the real estate syndication world. What would you say are some solid rule of thumbs to build your underwriting around?
Yeah. So first step, you've got to get financial information from the seller. And if you don't have the financial information, which is like the trailing 12, that's a profit and loss in that month to month format, the financials. So if you don't have that, you would have to kind of recreate that. But what you want to do is take a look at what the seller has been doing over the last year, income and expense wise. You're going to take that and then you're going to estimate a mortgage. All right. So right here, I recommend for underwriting, use a template. Use some sort of template. There are lots of templates out there. I have one on my website, but I'm not selling any template. I'm just saying use one. It makes the underwriting so much easier. And so in a calculator, in a multifamily underwriting calculator or template, you're going to want to put in, start off with the seller's asking price. All right. And why you want to start with the seller's asking price is because we don't want to create too many variables when we're first underwriting. All we're doing when we first underwrite a deal is to see, is our seller crazy, right? Is this price even close? Are we even in the ballpark? And if not, don't spend the next hour underwriting this deal. You really only want to underwrite maybe 10 minutes. And that gives you the, should I go further or not? What I find is a lot of people spend about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, truly underwriting a deal. That's fine if the deal deserves an hour underwriting. So you want to have a back of the napkin underwriting that tells you want to do or not do a whole hour underwriting, because if you don't do this, you're going to burn out. You're going to spend way too much time underwriting bad deals, especially in today's market where most of them are. So what I was saying is go back to your template, start off with the asking price, right? Just stick that in there. If you don't have the asking price, make one up. We'll back into the price using cash flow or returns, right? So quickly, asking price, put in the income, the expenses, just like it is off the seller's profit and loss, and then come up with a back of the napkin mortgage. I'll tell you what I do is to use 25% down payment, today's interest rate. All right. Now that varies. So whenever we're listening to this, I'm saying today, it's probably about 6.5%. So I would say for my underwriting, 25% down, 6.5% interest rate, and a 25-year amortization. That's a real vanilla sort of right down the middle loan. And so what I'm doing now is just to look at the debt service coverage ratio. All right. And that is the net operating income, which is the income minus expenses equals net operating income. So the bank wants to see, if you're getting a debt service ratio loan, they want to see that NOI to mortgage payment. What's the ratio? So if you have $1 of mortgage and $1 of net operating income, you're at a 1.0 debt ratio. They don't like that. They want to see you with about $1.25 for in NOI for every dollar of debt payment, right? So that's what I'm doing really. And that's my sort of back of the napkin tip is when you first underwrite a deal, just get your template, asking price, seller's income, seller's expenses, back of the napkin mortgage, look at your debt ratio. You need to be at about a 1.25. Where's this deal at, right? If it's less than 1.25, before you go anywhere else, stop and fix that. There's only two ways to do that, and that's either pay less or borrow less. So that's why I had you put in the seller's asking price and the 25% down. So go back to that 25% down, try 30, 40, 50. At some amount of down payment, you're going to get that debt ratio, right? And what you've done is to say, okay, if I'm getting a normal loan at a normal lender and I'm paying that price, here's my down payment. Is it worth it or not? You might be looking at a 45, 50, 55% down payment. And you say, gosh, that's not worth it. Okay, fine then. Put the down payment back at say 25. Now go to the price and you lower the price until you get a 1.25 debt ratio. So what I'm using is debt service ratio of 1.25 to craft an offer with probably putting down a little more down payment, maybe bringing the price down a little, adjust those two things until you get that 1.25 debt ratio. Now you have an underwriting that is similar to a lender. And that's your first step, right? Once you get it there, then you can decide if you want to go further in. So if you can do that pretty quick, you can do that underwriting in a few minutes. And if you see that, back of the napkin with the seller's asking price, it's a 0.7 debt service ratio, you've got a tremendous down payment to put down or a lot of price you're about to take off. I mean, like half. I find that unreasonable. I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time underwriting that particular deal. I would just say, hey, that's pretty far out there. I might look at creative financing or something like that. But that's what you got to do. You got to just kind of hit them quick, get yourself a go, no go, and then decide if you want to spend a long time on it.
Do you put any value on the market rents to be able to arrive at a number that would make the deal work, or you just only deal with actuals only?
Depends. The pro forma purchase is what you're describing is risky. So, what I always tell everybody is whenever you're buying a property that you're having to do something to make it make money, you're going to have to raise the rents and do this and do all that kind of stuff. You're going to work for the seller. How long do you want a job working for the seller? That's all you're at. That's where we're at here, right? So every day that you pay or every dollar you pay over market is a day you go to work for the seller, trying to recover the value that you have already paid. So remember, price and value are two different things. You've overpaid the price because now you're having to raise rents, do things to justify with the value the price, which doesn't match. So be careful about that, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's like starting off in a hole in the ground. You're going to fill that hole full of dirt just before you start to make some profit, and that's buying things at a low cap rate or a high price or whatever. You're just rewarding the seller, and it's going to take you time where you are not going to make money before you do make money. That's just going to the seller. So I'm not saying don't ever do it. I'm just saying be very, very careful about doing it. And on top of that, be real conscious about rent growth in general. Now, if you look at almost any market in America right now, rent growth is low to flat. So I would be careful with the catching the falling knife comment.
Yeah, that's a great observation. And like you said, a lot of value investors, they do operate by that model of adding value before they can really arrive at a number that makes them profitable and drive those rents.
Okay, yes, I've done almost everything I've ever done was value add. See, but it's a value add is a very easy term to throw around. And I would argue that about 80% of what people have bought thinking that was value add was just crap. It was just straight junk. It's not value add. There's a big difference between garbage and value add, and a lot of people, because it was distressed physically, believed we're going to go ahead and fix it up, raise rents, value add. And they didn't. They raised a bunch of money from a bunch of LPs that didn't fix the place up. It never cash flowed. Now the loans come due and now they're all losing all of their money. That's not value add. That's a foreclosure.
Yeah, that's great and really helpful insight. I'm always looking to learn. So I'll definitely take that.
It's real value add. I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely take that in to consideration. And I've heard a lot of other people speaking about buying 100% based off of actuals and making the offer price based off of that. And so that's definitely a much safer approach. It's not.
Yeah, but you'll miss deals that way too. That's wrong too. That's absolutely wrong too. See, this is where everybody's getting it wrong. You can't go around with one size fits all underwriting all the time, or you're going to be an extremist and you're going to miss deals on either side. The people that come out here and say everything's value add are going to wind up buying garbage that isn't really value add because they didn't understand it. And they're going to wind up going into foreclosure. But then everybody that says I'm only buying on actuals will miss a real value add deal, right? So the problem is people tend not to understand what real value add is. And I will make the comment, and this is a capitalist comment, not a socialist comment, not a liberal comment, but if your business model is to go around and just kick the crap out of all your customers all the time by overpaying for your business and then just shouldering your mistakes onto the tenants and raising the rent, you're not going to be here long. You can't run around, screw up your underwriting, screwing up buying, purchasing, and then just dump it all over the tenants to cover up your underwriting mistakes with high rent. It's not going to happen. You ain't going to be here long. And that's why so many people are about to go into foreclosure because they misunderstand the actual model of business, right? And there's real estate and there's business. And not most people. Most people don't understand anything about business. They do understand a little bit about real estate. And I even question that. But yeah, so you can't go around overpaying for the asset and always expecting the tenant to bail you out. That's the working class. They're only going to make so much revenue and so much money. And when you keep raising the rent, the government, by the way, calls that inflation. Core Inflation. So you raising rent, you're just raising the interest rates. So everybody out there buying real estate saying, I'm going to raise the rents. The rates are going to come down soon. You're absolutely crazy. If you're raising rents, you are raising rates. When you lower the rents, you will lower the rates. Real simple. Now, go buy that property at the right price. That's the key. Or find real value, find real underwriting, value add. Show me the last value add property I did was 60% occupancy. Probably a 2 cap rate. Everybody kept making offers on actuals and they weren't buying it. You had to buy that one on pro forma. Yeah, but 60% occupancy. Doesn't that sound like a bad deal? No, it was in an area that was 95% occupied. A unique deal where someone had more or less abandoned the operations of this very specific property in a very strong market. That's value add. 60% occupancy when everybody's at 60% occupancy is not value add. It's garbage. And there's where people just got to becoming money raisers, not value add implementers, not operators. They were just strictly money raisers. And that's kind of flaming out. So,
Bill, thanks for that insightful information, because a lot of people will miss out on opportunities because they're leaning one way or another. And instead of being fluid enough or open enough to evaluate deals, each one individually, and looking to see if there's opportunity or if there's not. Yeah. So, Bill, if we could go a little bit further, you do a lot of creative financing. Just give us some insight on that. What are some strategies that you could actually implement within the multifamily arena? Usually when you hear of creative financing, it's a lot of times centered around the single family world, but to hear about it on the multifamily front or within commercial real estate, what exactly can you do that's creative financing within CRE?
actually, more. I would make the comment probably more in commercial real estate than in single family, because single family there's more usury law. Like say seller financing. If you want to, let's say you own 10 homes free and clear, single family, and you want to seller finance, act as the bank and give a mortgage to a home owner. Don't quote me, but I believe the law now states you can only do that like 4 times before you're an unlicensed lender. Now, business to business, infinitely less regulated. Business to consumer, highly regulated. So real careful when dealing with consumer stuff. I'm down here in Florida. So there is let me back up and answer your question. The 2 main parts or 2 main focuses of creative financing are typically seller financing and master lease options, or in single family, you would call it lease options. So rent own. It's all the exact same thing, right? Multifamily, by the way, it's the same concept. And we do all the same creative financing as single family. You're just doing it over multiple units. There's almost no difference, really, structurally. The concepts, I mean, it's not like this whole new set of concepts over here in multifamily. No, lease options, seller financing, all the wraps, all that stuff. It's all done over here in multifamily. You just can do it a little bit different with some paperwork. But going down here in Florida, a lot of people, let me say, like to do what is called subject to financing. Are you familiar with that? Okay, that's where you come in and make the mortgage payment for the seller. You're not going to tell the bank, and you just kind of take over payments for the seller. Fine. If you do that in Florida, and that is a homeowner that you are making the payments for, and you miss a payment, that is a first-degree felony. You didn't know. So it's a felony if you do creative financing in Florida on a single-family home and you don't miss a payment. Exactly my point. It's highly regulated when you're talking about single family and homeowners. So in Florida, you do subject to financing. You better be careful if it's someone's home and mortgage that you're now making that payment on. You better make every payment. If you don't, it instantly becomes illegal. So now, if that is a business that you are doing seller finance, they don't care about that. You can do whatever you want over there. All right. So that's what I'd say. In multifamily, you're almost always business to business. So it probably, again, I'm not a lawyer nor giving legal advice here, but probably a little bit safer even in doing it with commercial stuff. But yeah, the two main aspects are seller financing and master lease options. Seller financing, again, like it sounds, the seller would have to have 100% equity, because to do proper seller financing, they're going to transfer the title to you, and then carry back a mortgage, just like a bank. You own it, and they have a lien on it, and that's seller financing. They cannot give you a mortgage if they themselves have a mortgage. That would be subject to financing or a wrap, or it's called other things. But a lot of people call that seller financing, and that's actually a misnomer. That is not seller financing, because if they don't have clear title, they can't really transfer title to you. That's why there's that due on sale clause. So that's seller financing. Everything else is a function of a master lease option or lease option, where you're in some way borrowing that property. You're renting or using the property with the right to buy it someday in the future. Hopefully you're setting that price today, and then you're going to kind of run it, operate it, make the payments to the bank in the meantime. So that's what I said. There's either seller financing, proper seller financing, or sort of different structures of lease options. Some people call it wraps, subject to. It's all about the same.
How about having a seller carry a note, like 35%, bringing that to the bank and using that as a down payment? Have you heard of that structure, or what exactly is that?
If the bank will allow it, you can do that, right? So that's where a lot of people kind of can wake up and they say, oh, I got a great idea. 2 a.m. last night, I'm going to go to the bank and get 75%. And I'm going to go to Joe, the hard money lender, and I'm going to get a hard money loan for 25%. Boom, 100% financing. Okay, well, let's pause right there. Number one, can you do that? Yes, technically you can. Can you do it legitimately? That's the question here. All right, so primary loan. All right, what we're talking about, the fancy term for today is called at-risk capital, right? That's down payment. That's what a bank calls you, at-risk capital. So the lender is looking at you saying, hold on, the warm body behind our loan, Eric, has zero at-risk capital, right? Because we're lending him 75% of the price, and then he's going over to Joe, the hard money lender, and getting another 25%. This guy's got no skin in this game whatsoever. So most of the time, the primary lender will not allow that second mortgage, or they will allow a percentage, but not usually 100%. So that's where I'm kind of saying, yes, it does work, but it might not work exactly in that sort of wholesale idea of, well, the seller will carry back 25% and I'll get 25% or 75% from the bank. I'm good at 100%. I've never been able to have more than about 10% carry back from a seller. With usually about 10, 15%, something like that, fresh capital to a deal. So yeah, I've had a lot of seller carrybacks, never where I went into a lender and got 100% from the lender and 100% from the seller. And the primary lender was okay with that. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying, I bet you that primary lender won't know about it. I have seen people, this is where you can get in a lot of trouble, go behind, put down 25% down payment, close, and then go after the closing, find a hard money lender to give them a second mortgage. And basically they're borrowing out that first 25% down payment. That is almost always a loan violation. Again, I'm not reading your mortgage documents, but almost in any loan with a commercial lender, it's going to say that you have to get permission from the primary lender to do that. That's where it falls apart. It's why when people talk about doing these wraps, we're subject to. Why not call up the bank and tell them you're doing it? Because they won't let you. And then everybody just says, oh, we just make the payment. They won't care as long as you make the payment. I agree. They probably won't care as long as you make the payment. But legally, let's be clear here, there's a due on sale clause in there that says they can do something about it if they want to do something about it. They're probably not as long as you're paying, but that's risk. So you gotta be careful with some of that stuff. A lot of guru stuff out there. I recommend everybody dig a little deeper in some of that creative financing topic before you go use it.
Yeah, that's really good information, and you explained it great. And so are a lot of these topics covered within the books that you have? I know you've got, okay, all right.
I've got, the Redder somewhere. We got some copies. I'll find some. I got some laying around here. Yeah, I have 2 books just since you mentioned it. They're both on Amazon. The one that we're talking about now is called Creative Cash. So there's 2 books, Real Estate Raw and Creative Cash. My book, Creative Cash, is the one on creative financing for multifamily. And yes, it goes through everything step by step. The first book, Real Estate Raw, is a how-to buy multifamily in general, right? So it doesn't have anything to do with creative financing. So the Real Estate Raw is like how to build a portfolio, Creative Cash is how to fund that with creative financing. So together they make a pretty good pair.
Okay. Bill, while we're here, if you could just elaborate a little bit more on your coaching program. I know you've got some students and you do some coaching as well. Just give us a little bit of information on that and how to people can get connected with you on that.
Definitely. Well, first off, you can find me at realestateraw.com. That's my main website. I have a ton of info out there. I think I write an article a week. I think I'm up to over 100 articles now on different subjects, all gobs of free information on realestateraw.com. All totally free. As far as the coaching program, you can get some more information on that website as well. But quickly here, it's a 6-month program. It's $5,000 for 6 months. It's 1 hour a week with me alone, Zoom, not coaching, one-on-one. And I take you through a very structured program of how to build a multifamily portfolio, but it is geared to you. So it's not one size, I'm just going to sit here and read you the book. I would sit down and, like I said a minute ago, talk about your net worth. All right, Eric, tell me about what can you borrow? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. Figure out what's right for you. Okay, now let's talk about your market. Where do you live? Is that a good place for market? I'm going to help you choose that market. I'm going to help you get into the market, figure out, what's the right size property for you in that area so that you have the highest probability of success. It's not a go buy 100 units or go home or do this or do that or left or right. It's very detailed and very specific to each person. I've been teaching for over 15 years. So a lot of students, a lot of experience teaching. I know what you need to know before you even need to know it. Before you even know you need to know it, I'll tell you what you need to know. Rare that somebody asks me a question that is a surprise, things of that nature. Most everybody more or less has the same problems. It's I'll tell you right now, it's deal flow, deal analysis, networking. Those are 3 things that I would teach you in my program. Deal flow, how to bring deals in the door on a regular basis. Deal analysis, what are you looking at? What's a good deal? And then networking is lastly the ability to fund those deals, right? If you don't have the net worth to take down those deals today, then you have sort of a dual business to build. One is out here, bringing deals in the door. The other side is the networking, the money raising, things like you're doing right now, right? And putting out information, putting out material, all those things. So I teach all those different systems in my program. But let me also give you my email address. It's bill@gobroadwell.com, GOBROADWELL, bill@gobroadwell.com. That's the email. So reach out to me.
Yeah. So first off, Bill, hats off to you for doing and offering one-on-one coaching, because there's a lot of coaching outfits out there. They don't do the one-on-one. And even if they do, they're really passing you off to someone else. And the job that the next person that's going to do with you on that is probably going to be very poor. And I hate to say that. I haven't been in all the coaching programs, but I've heard a lot from other syndicators or commercial real estate investors. And there's not a whole lot of really good reviews out there in the marketplace. But to be able to work with the actual owner of the company, such as yourself, that's phenomenal to have that opportunity.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've worked for other groups and programs, and what's going on. Most of your main names out there, I won't say those names, but most of your big names out there that are big coach education names, you're not even talking to those guys. You're not working with them. You're not talking to them. You're signing up for that big marquee name. And then who you wind up working with was somebody that was a student last year, one of their students. And so many of those big name coach programs promote their students to coaches. Fine, but you're paying $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, how much ever it is these days, to work with somebody who's been in the business about a year longer than you have. You're not working with the big person. You're working with their most successful student, and it's garbage. And the problem with that is that they don't have the experience to troubleshoot you through a real situation. They don't have the experience to look at those deals and say, yeah, but hold on, what you're not seeing is this, this, and this. They'll just sit here and read you stuff out of chapter 3. Oh, always do this, always buy like this, always do that. That's because they don't have the experience to tell you any different. They're over here, thumbing through my book and trying to go, what is the answer to that? And then they're reading it to you. It's garbage. right? And so, yeah, you're working with me directly in my program, but I don't take on a ton of students because I do work with everybody personally. It's not for everyone either. It is certainly not a get rich program. I'll tell you something else. I don't sell information, and that's something else I recommend everybody listening here. Do not buy information. Information is relatively worthless, right? Information is cheap and free. You can get all my books, $15, YouTube full of info, Chat GPT, tell you anything you want to know, right? Information is garbage. It's application that is of value, right? So you can sit here and watch all the YouTube videos you want, read all those books and take all the classes and all that kind of stuff. But when you wake up Monday morning and you go, okay, I've got all these things going on, all this stuff. So wait, what was step one again? What am I supposed to do now? That's where I come in, right there. All that knowledge is flying around in your head and you can't figure out what was step one. You can't figure out what that first step out the door is. That's application.
I couldn't agree with you more. You definitely need someone that can help you through the process. And a lot of times with these outfits, some of these programs have gotten so expensive, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for a year, and that 12 months rolls around pretty quickly, and you've got to renew your membership. And so to be able to have someone that is willing to walk you through the process, and when things get a little fuzzy on you, to hold your hand or to be a telephone call away, that is absolutely invaluable. So, hey, Bill, we're going to go a little bit further into the show. There's a portion of the show that we like to call our Moonlight coaching round. And what we do is ask our guests a few questions. If you can hold your response to between 1 to 2 minutes per question, that'd be great. The first question I have for you is, what do you think every new real estate investor should know before investing in real estate syndications?
That you're going to fail, and that's okay. And, it's only a failure when you repeat it. A mistake is only a failure when you repeat it. So number one, get ready for education. Number two, understand you're going to make some mistakes, and that's fine. Don't worry about it. If you think that you got to get it all right and you cannot fail, you have failed bigger than you realize. So be ready for failure, be ready for education.
Next question. Knowing what you know now, what kind of advice would you give a person attempting to get where you are within your real estate journey within their life? What kind of advice would you give them about balancing business and life?
Yeah, I would tell them that every day is Tuesday. That if you want to become an entrepreneur, it's not a balance. There is no balance. It's a lifestyle. So everybody's always talks about balance and this, that, and the other. The balance is just being willing to do the job and live the life all day, every day. That's it. Every day is Tuesday. You might be working on Sunday. You might be off on Monday. Who knows? It's a lifestyle, and it's not freedom as you understand it. It's freedom to live a certain life. But if you're looking for true freedom, stay at your job. You're free at 5 o'clock. You're free Saturday, Sunday. This is freedom to live a certain way, not freedom to do nothing.
Great answer. The next question: if a person had minimal amounts of time, no money or experience, but they wanted to start a business like yours, what steps would you recommend for them to start and scale a business?
If you're talking specifically about real estate, I would tell you to go get my book, Real Estate Raw. Really $15, probably about the best $15 you're going to spend. Start there. Once you've gone through the cheap information, then consider paying for more expensive information. But start small, start cheap, spend your hustle before your dollars. Don't reach out for giant expensive coaching programs and solutions and things like that when there's free info. Do the free stuff first. When you're ready, then you reach out for that coach. But understand that building a new business with limited time, you are going to need some help, right? You're going to need to maximize that time. If you don't have 20, 30 hours a week, you maybe got 2 or 3 or 5 hours a week. You want to make sure that you're filling those 5 hours as best you can, right? So let's make sure you're practicing correctly. That's what a coach is for, to help you practice correctly.
Bill, the final question I have for you is, what are the best reasons to invest in real estate as a passive investor?
I'm not going to tell you that there are any. I don't think that I can give you some best reasons, but to say that you should invest in real estate passively, I don't think is a good message. I think if real estate for you is the right thing and you want to invest in real estate passively and things of that nature, then you should, but not without getting an education first. And just thinking that investing in real estate is always a good idea is a bad idea. So I don't want anybody to think that I always recommend everybody invest in real estate. I do not. It's not for everyone. And certainly investing passively, you have to make sure that let me rephrase that. You need to really understand that you're investing in people every bit as much as you're investing in real estate. And so if you want to invest passively, then you better be really careful who you're investing passively with as much as what you're investing in. And I think so many people focus on the what and not the who. So I would say, number one, get an education. Number two, really pay attention to who they are. Number three, it might not be for you. It's not for everybody.
Bill, I appreciate your honesty. There's a lot of people, they just go with the herd, and you could tell that you have your own philosophy. You're going to do things your way, and you're going to give out the best information that you know. And I can appreciate that. I much prefer a person to disagree with me rather than just nod their head, knowing good well they're not in alignment with that. So, great answers to each one of those questions. Before we go, we always like to have our guests share a great business book or either a great personal development book. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I tell you what, I was thinking about this before the call. I'm going to give you, I have lots of books, and that's why it's always hard for me to sort of boil it down to one or two. What I've been telling everybody lately, and this is something I realized, the art of negotiation or the concept of negotiation is something everyone needs to go out and spend some time reading and studying. Everybody thinks they're a good negotiator. Most people are wrong. I'm telling you, you're probably wrong. So to answer your question, I recommend getting to yes and then never split the difference. All right. So Getting to Yes is an older book. I think it came out in the 80s. It's by Robert Fisher, William Ury. It's a book on negotiation. It's a great book, but it's sort of the IBM book of business negotiation, right? Read that and then read Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. Phenomenally good book, more modern book, but I've read both. Chris Voss really goes in and unravels some of the old way of thinking in negotiation. And if you don't read the old way first, you're actually not going to get as much out of Chris Voss's book. So if you've read Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, go back and read Getting to Yes. You're going to go, oh, that's what he was talking about, through a whole bunch of it. If you've read neither one, Getting to Yes, Never Split the Difference, in that order. Great courses of study, negotiation.
Okay. Getting to Yes is one that I haven't read. I've heard of it, but I just haven't made it around to actually buying the book and sitting down and actually reading it. But yeah, definitely I'll have to add that to the old list. Bill, thanks for coming on to the show. You provided a wealth of knowledge. You've given us some really great strategies for making solid underwriting analysis to be able to really look at a property and understand exactly how our property is performing and to make a great investment. And so, Bill, if you could share those details again, how a person could get in contact with you on.
Absolutely. Yep. The main website is realestateraw.com. Again, ton of free info on there, articles, lots of info. And then if you want to reach out to me directly, it is bill@gobroadwell.com, GOBROADWELL.com. That's, if anybody cares, that's my other website, Broadwell Property Group. That's just the one that has my resume and all my properties on there. So if anybody wants to do some background check on me, Broadwell Property Group, that's the actual ownership. LLC doesn't sell anything, but you can just go check out the website. But those are all ways to get in touch with me. And Eric, I appreciate you having me on today.
Bill, we definitely loved having you, and we'll love to have you back anytime.